Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Inferno. It is Wednesday night. It's a hot one. We got some great stuff to talk about. But even on a greater note, for those of you that are college fans, we didn't plan this tonight, but the Big Ten starts this weekend. We've got actual college football, and both of the slappies of the Big Ten are wearing their pride on their heads. So with that being said, good evening, gentlemen. Rob, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. Welcome to College Game Day. The Fantasy Inferno. I'm glad to be here.
And Herbie over there. Bryce, how you doing, buddy?
I'm always good, especially being a Buckeye fan. You really have a lot of struggles in both the NFL and college.
Joe Milton is going to save us, all right? So just
Okay.
be careful. You know,
Okay.
Justin Fields has got his work cut out for him this year. So we've got a fun one scheduled tonight. Obviously, we're going to talk about maybe some guys in Week 7, but we want to answer your questions as well. We appreciate everything that you guys have been doing over here on YouTube. For those that are with us on YouTube and Facebook, we're going to answer all the questions you got. So if you've got redraft questions, hit us up. We've been rolling through those the last few weeks, and it's been going well. So we'll keep that trend moving. So posting the questions in the chats and all those things. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification icon and do all the things I tell you to do in literally every single video you see here on YouTube. Because it helps us. It helps us stay connected. You get updated when we go live or when we post new videos. We posted a way too early 2021 rookie mock draft here recently for your pleasure and probably laughter. So, you know, stay up to date here with us here on YouTube and rotoheat.com. We got lots of articles and a lot of great writers that are putting out content weekly to help you with you know, all of the redraft and all the dynasty content you can ask for. So with that being said, let's talk some news and notes. Obviously, probably the biggest piece of news everybody's been talking about is Fitzpatrick benched. The Tua era in Miami has begun. Mr. Sullivan, we'll start with you. How do you feel about Tua time? Is it Tua time, or is it Fitzmagic going to come back in because Tua's not ready? How do you feel about that?
I feel sick to my stomach for Ryan Fitzpatrick. The man is totally disrespected. He's having a career year, if you can believe that. He has a Dolphins team that is in the middle of a rebuild. It's a game out of the lead in the division, in the thick of the playoff race, especially with an expanded wild card this year. I don't have a problem with getting Tua some looks, but I just think it's too soon for the Dolphins to be making this move. I can't help but think it's because their bye week got shifted around. So this was initially a game week against the Chargers. Their bye was originally in week 11. They moved it around, so now it's Tua. I don't know what to say. I just think that I feel bad for Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I feel bad for Dolphins fans because I think they're a better football team with Fitz under center. What about you, Bryce?
Yeah, I definitely feel bad for Ryan Fitzpatrick, but you know, because he even said it was heartbreaking for him. But then I was like reading around, and Kurt Warner talked about how it was very similar for him when he was leading the Giants to a potential playoff berth, and they ended up sitting him for Eli Manning, and it worked out pretty well for them. Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls, so it's definitely hard to tell because you're not going to know if it's too early until you see him play. So if he comes up and everything, it's going to look like a great decision. But if it's obviously not, he's not ready yet, at least you still have Ryan Fitzpatrick to go back to. I'd almost be curious to see if the Dolphins would try and shop him at this point because, I mean, the trade deadline is coming up. I haven't heard anything, but the way he's playing right now, there's a lot of teams that could definitely use like a Ryan Fitzpatrick type player. Like the Cowboys would be a good one. So, yeah, I agree with you, but I'm definitely waiting to see before I form a real opinion on it. Brad?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Tua's the superior athlete, and yes, I dropped Bryce's favorite line. So, you know, it's interesting to me that they pulled this trigger. They're not I don't think they're really a playoff team, even with Fitz at the helm. I think they're still in the process of the rebuild. So 3-3 is cool. I mean, I'm sure Miami fans are happy that they're in a spot where they can, be a 500 squad this year. But if they didn't think they were going to make a playoff push, and if you don't think Fitz is a guy, because look, he's never really gotten you deep into a playoff run. I've never seen him be anything more than a really solid game managing type quarterback who can get you some big games here and there. Why not let Tua go? If he's healthy and 100%, see what happens. I mean, 2020 is one of those crazy years that everybody gets a mulligan anyway. Most of these guys are going to get another chance this year. Probably the Lions are going to be dumb enough to keep their coach and do all those things. Why not let Tua go and see what happens? The bigger question
Does the play?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Brad. Go ahead.
No,
I had a quick one. Just do you think the play of Burrow and Justin Herbert is kind of guiding the Dolphins to making this decision?
It couldn't hurt. I mean, Herbert looks fantastic. I know the win and losses aren't there yet, but the talent and the play and the command of the offense is there. And obviously Burrow, Bryce sees him a whole lot closer than the rest of us being there in Ohio. Burrow looks phenomenal. I mean, I've been super impressed with his ability to make something out of nothing. I mean, he's had one bad game this year. And with as bad as that offensive line is, I don't blame him. I really thought he'd have more bad games. So why not? The bigger question is, if you're from a redraft perspective, what are you doing with Tua? Does he become a guy who could be a QB1 the rest of the way, like a back-end QB1, or is he a guy that you're just going to let sit out there on the waiver wire and let somebody else take control of it? How do you guys feel about that? Are you throwing your waiver priority or fab? What does that look like for you, Sullivan?
I'm going to pass, to be totally honest. I think mainly because the quarterback position is so deep, and I have a lot better of an understanding of a lot of the other quarterbacks. I don't know what Tua is going to do. I've seen him throw 2 passes as a pro. He's got 100% completion rate, but at the same time, I don't know what he does going forward. His first start's not going to be comfortable. He's got Aaron Donald going to be running him down every snap. So I want to wait and see, and that probably eliminates me from being a Tua fantasy manager, because if I wait and he's good, then he's gone. And if I wait and he's not good, then I probably don't want him anyway, if that makes any sense.
What do you think, Bryce?
Yeah, I had one of the late priorities in one of my leagues, and I picked him up because I was one of those victims of the Dak Prescott injury and didn't really have a great backup. So I ended up trading around and getting Aaron Rodgers as a good starter, but I'll take a little chance on Tua, see if he has any rushing upside when he does kind of take over. But it'll be, like you said, it definitely. I was looking at the first play and I noticed it was the Rams. No other situation to see how poised you can be when Aaron Donald's running you down a lot.
Totally.
Yeah, very true.
Now,
go ahead.
This is also the same organization that named Josh Rosen their starter for the rest of the season last year, and by halftime they changed their mind. So I wouldn't say it's in permanent ink yet.
Yeah, anything's possible. I mean, for me, I want to see what Tua can do, but I don't want to see him if he's not 100%. You spent a lot on him. That's a high draft pick. Make sure he's healthy and ready to go. I mean, I understand 2-minute garbage time against a team that wasn't trying or looks like they weren't trying, whatever. But, the rest of their schedule, we looked at it on last night's show, they really don't have an easy schedule the rest of the season. They face good defenses, pretty consistent. I think there was only 1 week where we're like, okay, this is a winnable game, even for a rookie quarterback. But other than that, they've got some stiff competition. So I think they face the Jets one more time, and that's about it.
I was going to say, it's the Jets game in 12, I believe. Yeah.
So, all right. So the questions are rolling in. So we'll hit a few as we move along. Prodige AML over on YouTube says, Robbie Anderson, Justin Jackson, Leonard Fournette for Gaskin. Okay, so this is a trade. Robbie Anderson, Justin Jackson, and Leonard Fournette for Gaskin, James White, Adam Humphries, and Deontay Johnson. A lot of pieces. A lot of pieces. Robbie Anderson, Justin Jackson, Fournette is on one side of the deal. Gaskin, James White, Adam Humphries, Deontay Johnson is on the other. And he does say in this chat his running backs and wide receivers other than that are Gurley, Drake, Edmonds, Robert Woods, DK, Edelman, and Shark.
I'm going Robbie Anderson, Justin Jackson, Leonard Fournette simply because I like the upside that Robbie Anderson gives you on a weekly basis. Justin Jackson is going to be incredibly relevant for, it looks like a longer period of time than initially thought, with news on Eckler coming out today that he's going to be out longer than perhaps they initially thought. And I'm still not totally given up on Leonard Fournette's ability to bounce back in that offense. When I compare that to Gaskin, who's solid, White, who I don't know what he's going to do every week, and Humphreys, who's an up-and-downer, and Deontay, who struggled with injury. So I don't think it's a bad lopside either way, but I'm going to lean towards the Anderson, Jackson, Fournette side.
How about you, Bryce?
I agree. I think when you were saying his team there, I like his running backs better than his wide receivers, and I think Robbie Anderson helps that part where I don't think Gaskin really does that much. And I wouldn't want to start any of the other people on the second part of the trade with White for sure. I don't start any Patriot running back anymore. White, it was White, Deontay Johnson, and Humphreys. Yeah. So maybe Deontay Johnson when he's healthy is worth starting, but I still like Robbie Anderson a heck of a lot better. And the possibility of Leonard Fournette kind of maybe taking over when it comes closer to playoff time as being maybe a flex play. I'll take that.
Rojo and his 4.9 yards per carry is just not exciting you guys still, eh?
Hey,
I just imagine what Fournette will do if he was in that role.
I gotta give Rojo credit. Like, I've dumped on that guy for so long. Like, he's been running hard and he's been playing well. So you gotta take your lumps with your victory laps, right? So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Over on Facebook, Blake asks basically who to play in his flex: Adrian Peterson, Jared Cook, or Emmanuel Sanders. Bryce.
Man.
I'd probably go Jared Cook.
Yeah, I'm either going Jared Cook or Emmanuel Sanders. It's hard to tell because we haven't seen what Emmanuel Sanders does more as the number 2 wide receiver.
Right.
And I think he does better. So I could see that if you wanted a floor, I would consider Jared Cook. But if you wanted more of a ceiling when Michael Thomas comes back, which I think I know reports say now came out with a hamstring injury along with that ankle. But if he was about to play that week where he punched his teammate in the face or whatever he did, I'm assuming 2 extra weeks of rest is going to just – I can't imagine his ankle got worse. So I'm thinking he's probably going to play this week, and Emmanuel Sanders is going to probably do a lot better as the number 2. So I would go him as more of a ceiling play. Sully?
I think I'd go with Adrian Peterson, as crazy as that sounds. I don't like the Saints passing game at all. And Sanders has played great, but I think that MT coming back is totally going to cannibalize that. You back out that weird 44-yard touchdown pass that Jared Cook caught 2 weeks ago prior to their bye, and he was invisible. And the week before that, I think he had a catch or 2 before he hurt his groin and missed some time. So the Lions have the Falcons, and you can run all over Atlanta. I know that my Vikings really didn't do a very good job of demonstrating that last week. That was disgusting, but that's a whole other show. I think, the Lions got Swift going. They might get AP going. I think it's close, and is it PPR? Do we know that?
I don't know. It doesn't say, but.
So I'll do one of those cop-out answers. If it's a non-PPR or a standard league, I'll go with Adrian Peterson. If it's any points per reception, be it half or full, I'll go with Sanders or Cook.
Okay, there we go. Wilson Hensley over on YouTube's got a couple things. So first he says, good evening, guys. Did you know that Gaskin stats are very similar to CEH as of this week? Fun fact.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
And then he says, can you give me, so he's got a dynasty question here. Can you give me your insight on what I should expect out of Antonio Callaway coming off the suspension after the bye? I see him in the slot being huge with Tua, loving those slant throws. So do you think Antonio Callaway is going to get a chance coming off the bye week to really make a name for himself in this team, especially because he's coming off his suspension? Rob.
Is he on their practice squad? Do we know?
Yeah.
Or is he nowhere because he's suspended?
No, I believe he was on their practice squad. Let me check.
Okay. I don't see him being fantasy relevant without injury. I like the slot options that they have there now. So I think they're going to roll with what they have. He's talented. There's no doubt about it, but he just struggles so much to stay out of trouble and keep his head on straight. So he's definitely worth keeping on your dynasty roster, provided that your rosters are big enough, and just stashing and hoping and waiting. But I don't see any relevance there, at least not anytime soon. How about you, Bryce?
Yeah, there's a lot of talent on the Dolphins when it comes to the receiving core. They got Gesicki, who's pretty much a wide receiver. They got Preston Williams and Devontae Parker. So I'll probably just hold. Like I said, if it's a dynasty, your roster's probably deep if you still have them on your roster. So I would just hold him and see what happens. I mean, you never know what happens if an injury or something like that, but I don't see him being relevant without that.
Right. Yeah, probably not. They've got a lot of options ahead of him, especially,
right.
Especially because some of these guys have panned out. I mean, they've even got lower on the food chain, was it like Isaiah Ford, and some of these guys have shown a little bit here and there. So yeah. I think it'd be a lot for him to try to make a name for himself right now. It'd probably take some time. So if you got him, hold him. If you don't got him, I'm not chasing after him. Michael Reeves on YouTube says, trade Elliott for Chris Carson and DJ Moore? ? I have Clyde and David Johnson, Justin Jackson, and at wide receiver, he's got Hopkins, Thielen, Metcalf. Wanted to get more wide receiver depth. So would you trade Ezekiel Elliott for Chris Carson and DJ Moore, Bryce?
Not with those running backs. No, you're downgrading. Even with these 2 fumbles, he's still going to be the man in Dallas. So I would definitely not be trading him. You're super strong at wide receiver right now with those 3. So that getting DJ Moore, he's been kind of disappointing this year personally, because I had him as possibly being a top 10 wide receiver. But Chris Carson is doing well, but it seems like your need is more at running back at this point. So I would keep your stud running back. Sully?
Yeah, I agree. I don't mind it when you just look at the pieces in the trade. I don't love it, but you're right, Bryce. When you take a look at what you'd be left with at running back, you're gutting yourself by taking out a top 3 running back and what you have left. So I think you have to pass on that, or get a better return for, get a Derrick Henry-ish type, or if you can get Aaron Jones, you might not get the wide receiver with it, but you can't give up the depth you have at running back. Brad?
Yeah, no, yeah. Typically in these deals and redrafts, I want the elite player or as close to elite as possible, and Zeke's there. So I would stick with Zeke and look elsewhere. I mean, especially with wide receivers, you can hit the waiver wire. You can try to find some of those if you need bye week flexes and a guy that pops off and has a good week. So, all right. So lots of conversation, which is good. Keep it up. Any hot rumors? Oh, over on Facebook, anybody wants to know if there's any hot rumors like John Ross maybe being traded to the Eagles?
That's not a bad one. So I'll just slide in a news and notes item then in this spot. Antonio Brown's eligible to come back off of his suspension after week 8. Adam Schefter tweeted today that there are multiple teams interested in his services. He feels that the Seattle Seahawks are the leading contender for it. AB worked out with both Geno Smith, the Seahawks backup, and Russell Wilson in the offseason. He's said to be close friends with both of them, and the Seahawks have had many conversations with how AB would fit into that offense. So that's interesting. It's interesting as to what that looks like for the Seahawks going forward. Makes me think of that last trade question with what's the future of Chris Carson, who's been involved in the passing game. If you now run 3 wide with DK Lockett and AB, I don't know how much there is for that. So I guess question for you guys is, do you see AB fitting in with the Seahawks? And if it's not the Seahawks, who is it? Bryce.
Yeah, I think AB could fit. I mean, if you're just talking about a player, he could fit in anywhere. He's still a good wide receiver, a great wide receiver. It would really be nice to see him go to a team that doesn't need wide receivers, because the Seahawks are doing just fine at scoring points. You think they'd need to address defense. It would just be terrifying to see Lockett as their 3rd best wide receiver at this point in the season. If they get him, it's definitely obviously making a statement. They're trying to make a push, which they are more than well equipped to do so. I'm trying to think of some other teams that could use him, and obviously the first comes to mind is the Patriots. We should have probably just stuck with them because right now our receiving core looks like the worst in the NFL or second worst, right there with the Jets, who aren't going to go get him. They're tanking. And then the only other team I could really think that could be a contender for him would be the 49ers. They're definitely still able to make a playoff run. Jimmy Garoppolo looked a lot better this past week. They got some young pieces, but they don't really have a guy that could stretch the field or work the sideline like Antonio Brown. So, but if you read anything on him right now, it looks like the Seahawks will get him. So until I see another team go up, it's looking pretty good for him to land there. Brad?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I like that spot. I know everybody seems to be excited about it, but so far he's had 22 targets to any other receiver not named DK or Tyler. So I don't know where those targets come from. So tight ends have gotten 30 targets. Running backs have gotten 25, 28 targets. I mean, there's ways to make it happen, but the way that offense tends to run, they like to run multiple tight end sets. They don't typically go to 3 wide. I mean, and they have suitable 3 wide receiver, third wide receivers. I mean, David Moore, Freddie Swain, guys that they've drafted and kind of cultivated in that team. So I don't mind it. Obviously, I think that Seattle can be successful even without him because we're seeing it. So he obviously just makes them better. But from a fantasy perspective, it's like, who does he hurt the most? Is it Chris Carson because Chris Carson got 23 targets out of the backfield? I don't know, because some of those went, I've rewatched Seattle's footage. It's like, I don't know that those are designed passes. Not all of them are designed passes to the running back. It's more like I'm checking. Okay, I'm throwing it to the running back. So how many of those really were truly designed for him? I don't know. That's a tough one for me. Like, I would rather see him go somewhere where he'd actually, come in and be a guy that they would probably lean on as the top option, because that's what he is. He's only, 31? I'm sure he can still go with the best of him at 31 because of the way he plays. I'm sure he's perfectly fine. Like, I would rather see him, like Bryce said, go to New England or somewhere that needs wide receiver help. Even go to somewhere like Houston because their receivers tend to get hurt a bunch.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson having a suitable number 1 that isn't on the injured list every week would be great. I don't know. So my thinking is Seattle is great for the team from an NFL perspective. From a fantasy perspective, it seems like it would just be super muddy. Outside of DK, I think it hurts Tyler too because they both can do a lot of the similar things. But
is it a good idea for Seattle? Is it a good football move? It's a 5-0 football team that looks really good, that is potentially bringing in a ticking time bomb into their offense.
Well,
you have to think that Russ is going to cook and he's going to spread the ball around. What are we, week 11 before AB's bitching about targets and how much he has football? I think it's potentially catastrophic. If they were 2-3, I could see them doing this, but at 5-0, I don't get it.
Well, but so those teams that are at the top of their divisions or are undefeated or close to undefeated, they can bring in a guy like that and be like, listen, we don't need you. We're winning without you. We're going to add you because we think there's something you can do to make us better, or we can use your talent. So they have the ability to go, listen, we're good with you, we're good without you. And that whole mindset and culture might be able to stop some of that diva. I don't know. Because I don't remember hearing him complaining in New England last year with the one game he played.
Well, he had his own issues there, though, right?
Right, but I'm just saying I didn't ever heard him complain about Brady or the offense or any of that. It was all the outside stuff.
Sure, but what's he going to complain about that he only had 1 touchdown and he had a hell of a game that one game he played, right?
It was great.
So going to a place that's set up with a good culture and a strong foundation already, it's like, we don't need you. So you run your mouth, we'll get rid of you.
It's really sad when things don't work out for the Patriots like that. It's awful.
It is terrible.
The best teams find a way to do it, and it's just the way it works. Unfortunately, as much as I don't like any team that isn't Detroit, Patriots are smart. They've got a good coaching staff. I just wish they'd stop letting their coaches leave and sending them out to ruin the rest of us.
Hey, the Dolphins are doing all right.
I'm not sure. Was Brian Flores brought up in the coaching tree? Because, like, Patricia, he started as, like, an intern there. I mean, he obviously had college experience. Well, actually, Patricia started out as a tape reviewer. So, like, they brought him in. And
I thought he was like a janitor.
He compiled footage and review tape and all that stuff. So, I mean, but he wasn't, Flores. I feel like Flores coached under somebody else in the NFL, didn't he?
He was there. I thought Flores was there for a while.
Oh, was he? He might have.
I think so.
I must be thinking of somebody else because I thought he was a head coach before, but I must be thinking of somebody else.
Yeah, I don't know. Flores I like, so maybe that's why I'm biased. I'm like, at least he's a good coach. I didn't like Bobby. I don't like Matt Patricia. There's so many New England coaches that have just been bums. Bums.
I heard the McDaniels with, I can't remember the name of your player personnel guy in New England that the Texans tried to steal before and got slapped on the wrist.
Whatever his name is.
Something like that. So I heard the rumor that him and McDaniels combined go to Houston next year, and O'Brien goes back to the Patriots as the OC.
Man, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm voiding my contract. Get me out of here.
Hey, Matt Patricia made Tim Tebow look good. So, I'm sorry, not Matt Patricia.
McDaniels. I knew who you meant.
All right.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't know. Did he make him look good? The guy completed one pass.
Took him to the playoffs.
I think the defense. That's like saying that Peyton Manning won that last Super Bowl. That defense took him to the playoffs.
True. Okay, that's true.
All right.
That was a really good pass.
So we've talked about the Patriots far too much on this show.
Flores was in New England forever.
Was he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just looked it up.
I'm proud he was.
Yeah. Well, I like him. I'll give him a mulligan. Maybe he didn't hang out with him very often or something. All right, so what other news do we want to talk about? Is there anything else prevalent? Have we talked about Lev Bell on this show? Did we talk about it last week?
No, we haven't. That's a really good thing to bring up. So, Le'Veon Bell, released by the New York Jets, signed on one-year deal with Kansas City Chiefs. Wasn't eligible to play this past Monday night in Buffalo due to COVID protocol, which I don't think he would have played anyway in his first week. So he's eligible to play this week, week 7 against, I can't remember.
Denver?
And then week 8 is against the Jets, which is going to be so much fun. Who do they play this week? I don't know.
I'm looking. Hold on.
I guess the question is, so after we just watched CEH have the game of his young career on Monday, what do you see as breakdown, workload, and going forward, what are these two gentlemen as fantasy assets? And I should ask someone to answer that. Bryce, how about you?
Okay. I don't know. This is another one where it's like, this kind of sucked because I don't think really many people benefited from, especially when you're looking at it from a fantasy perspective. Nobody benefited from this other than, I guess, Pat Mahomes. Le'Veon Bell is a serviceable running back. I really thought that Miami would be a good fit for him. It would benefit not only him a lot more, but just the QB there as well, having a really solid back out of the backfield. I just feel like Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been doing everything right. He's been playing well. It didn't seem like the running back was much of a need for the Kansas City Chiefs. They really don't have many needs anywhere on their team. The defense is playing well. So I don't know what the breakdown is. I mean, I'm assuming that he's going to take Darrell Williams completely out of the picture, and he's going to play more of that role, but maybe more increased where he does kind of eat into Clyde Edwards-Helaire's touches. But I still see Edwards-Helaire being the man until he messes up. If anything, I guess it shortens his leash in case he starts developing a fumbling problem or something like that. So I don't know. I didn't like it, but what can you do? Brad?
Yeah. 107 attempts for Helaire, 34 for Mahomes, 17 for Williams, 9 for Thompson. I mean, it seems like a strange move because it seems like the only person he's really going to hurt is CEH. which you would think that would be the one they don't want to hurt because he's really played well so far in his rookie year. But we know that Kansas City's able to deploy multiple running backs and seem to be able to use them well together. So you got to think that Lev Bell's more of the kind of the goal line type guy. Although trying to think about his time with the Jets, I don't think they really used him that often as the goal line back. But I think
he isn't real often at all.
Yeah,
I don't think we got there pretty much.
So that would be my guess because we know that he's only got one rushing touchdown. Most of his damage is done. I mean, he's done pretty well in the receiving game, but I would think that Bell comes in and kind of immediately gives you value as kind of the PPR / goal line back, and that CEH is kind of the between the 20s guy. That's pure guesstimate and based on my opinion, not the opinion of rotoheat.com or anyone else on the team. That's just my opinion. He's kind of the PPR guy and a goal line guy. So there's value to be had there. I don't think he's an RB1 most weeks. He's probably like a low-end RB2 most weeks would be my guess, with a ceiling of if he gets a touchdown or two, then he has a big week,
Yeah, I see it as two totally different ways to look at it. Obviously, this being a fantasy football program, we should be looking at it from the fantasy perspective. I don't think Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs care too much about our fantasy roster. So this makes their team better. It gets Williams off the field. It gets Darwin Thompson off the field. CEH has 128 touches this year. He's scored one time. He's been unlucky. He's scored back-to-back games and had them both called back due to penalty. But I agree with you, Brad. I think that Bell's the red zone guy, and he's kind of like the drive finisher if they need it. Crazy that teams have to try to figure out a way in the red zone to stop Kelsey, Hill, Hardman, Bell, Mahomes himself. Like, it's almost unfair. And they played Denver this week. So I see them both as RB2s rest of the season. Maybe I'm a little bit optimistic on Bell. I'm not sure.
And this just in, Andy Reid does not care about fantasy football. Just putting that to bed. He probably doesn't even play fantasy football. He probably has no clue about that.
Yeah. So Brad, we got it's going Debbie crazy over here on the chat. You need to get in there, man.
Which chat? Are you talking about the Chris Barnes?
Over on YouTube. There's some Debbie conversation in the chat, and
where?
I think I'm lost. I think I saw some Debbie mentioned in there. Maybe I'm just delusional.
That was IDP. They were talking about Chris Barnes and Spillane and some of those guys. Yeah,
different acronym that I don't know.
Right. Well, you could be a co-commissioner with Leone and who was it that we're going to have a team together? Was it Leone enabled maybe? We were talking in one of the other shows the other day that Leone enabled. We're going to have to do a Debbie IDP league together, and you could be a co-commissioner. All three of you commission a team, and we'll make it a reality show too. It'll be funny.
I'll be the head coach so that they can fire me halfway through and I can be relieved of my duties.
All right, so we do have questions over on YouTube. We have more questions. Tacky T says, do I trade away Kittle and Justin Jefferson for CMC? Obviously, we know CMC is potentially coming back here shortly, but I got to think Kittle is probably your tight end one, and Justin Jefferson's obviously worked his way into a wide receiver one type role. Tacky T, if you could tell us in the chat who your running backs are, it'd be nice to know. I mean, obviously CMC is going to be better than those guys, but it seems like you're giving up a lot if you're in a redraft trying to win, having a tight end one and a wide receiver one.
Yeah, I don't think you do, because I think there's another component to this too, right? And it's, so who's the other person that goes into your lineup once those two come out of it? So when you trade those two pieces for CMC, it's probably okay. I'm a little unsure as to how much CMC is involved when he comes back, but you're trading away two components of your starting lineup for one. So that means you're sliding somebody else in there to fill that starting lineup. So at what tier is that person that's filling that open spot? And at what point does CMC become the CMC that we know? Mike Davis is going to have some kind of role there. I don't know. I don't know if I do that trade. What about you, Bryce?
Yeah, like you said, if this is a redraft, you obviously didn't draft Justin Jefferson as a starter. So it'd be interesting to see who your wide receivers are.
Yeah.
But obviously you drafted Kittle as a starter, so I definitely want to see who your backup tight end is.
He's-
Luckily this year, There are so many.
Yeah. So he says that running back he's got Miles Sanders and Devin Singletary, and then at tight end he's got Jonnu Smith. So.
Well, I see why he wants to trade for a running back.
I would do the trade. Yeah, I would do that trade. I would honestly look for if you could get Kamara for that too. I mean, those two dudes have had some really big games this year that have really opened up some people's eyes. So I would work for Alvin Kamara first, but then maybe work down the line at that point because you could get a high valuable or a very valuable running back for those two dudes. But with that being your backup tight end, yeah, I'll do that trade for sure.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I think I'm okay with it. CMC. So my worry with CMC is what does he look like when he comes back? How involved is he? I mean, how long does it take him to get back up to speed? Trading away those startable pieces, you could be hurting your week to week for a month. Where what's your team look like? Are you undefeated?
Here's another thing. Here's another thing to keep in mind too is Carolina is on bye in week 13.
Ugh.
There are some leagues out there that might be playoff bound in week 13. So just keep that in mind that you got for some unknown reason the NFL has no buys in week 12 and Tampa and Carolina on bye in week 13. So most leagues start playoffs, especially redraft wise, in week 14 or even 15. But just for that, keep that in mind.
That's a tough one right there. Okay, so Mini Jordan 718 on YouTube asks, for the rest of the season and this week, who would you rather have, PPR league, Justin Jackson or DeAndre Swift? I'm going DeAndre Swift. I think Detroit finally realized he's their best running back. How about you, Rob?
I agree. As much as I really like Justin Jackson, I think that him and Kelly will flip-flop until Eckler comes back. And Swift, if your head coach has any concept of reality, he's going to lean more on Swift going forward. Bryce?
Yeah, I would have to see what the schedule would be for at least this week, but for the rest of the season, I'm 100% going DeAndre Swift. Oh, they got the Falcons this week. You said it earlier. I don't know if you caught it, but I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift for sure.
Good to see you're finally speaking Canadian, Bryce. I like it.
Awesome. Okay, so that catches us up on the question. The chat is going great. You guys are rocking over there. Keep pumping the questions in, and we'll get to them. It's interesting where we're at. We're at such a strange point in the season where I'm really expecting the trade deadline to heat up in the NFL, especially like teams like Atlanta coming up here. I mean, I know that they had a win last week, but there's so many teams that are kind of in that weird spot that you're shaking your head.
I'm just. I had a flashback to Atlanta's win. Sorry, I just threw up my mouth.
Who'd they beat last week?
The Minnesota Golden Gophers, I think.
So we're at a point where it'll be interesting to see who is on the move come the trade deadline. I could see, and from Atlanta, I could easily see if things aren't going well for the Cowboys. They're still close to, I think they're still leading their division right now, even after getting dominated. I could easily make the case where Jerry Jones goes crazy and tries to get like Matt Ryan or something like that because he needs a quarterback and Andy Dalton is not it. So, what do you guys see as we move the rest of the year? Do you guys see something where the trade deadline might become something that's hotter than it really is? Is there anybody you'd like to see on the move? And I figured this was an interesting conversation to have on this show, seeing as it affects redraft significantly. Rob, what do you think?
I would like to see my team blow it the heck up. There's a few pieces that I would like them to keep. I don't want Harrison Smith to go anywhere because I love the man. But there's some pieces on the D line that I think can be moved. The offense, I don't know, does anybody need? They don't have much. That's the problem. I would give Kirk Cousins a ride to the airport if anyone would take him, but that's not going to happen. I seriously, Bryce mentioned this earlier. If Jerry Jones should be calling Miami, and he should be saying, take Andy Dalton, and here's a 5th-round pick, and give me Ryan Fitzpatrick for the rest of the season. That just makes so much sense. Fitzpatrick would go crazy with those 3 wide receivers in that offense. It would be so fun. There's teams, I'm sure, Brad, you would know better than I do, that have defensive needs out there. I don't know, man. The NFL trade deadline has gotten more and more prevalent in the last couple of years. It's still not what I think it could or should be. COVID's going to play a huge impact into contracts moving in terms of money left and what's the salary cap look like next year. It's just so complex. Without being a capologist, I really don't know. But I think that I would personally like my team to, finish 1-15, and then we'll go from there. Bryce, what do you think?
Yeah, it's easy to think about your team and the deadline. And when I think about it, I think New England just needs a wide receiver. I think the rest of the team is fine. But, other than Fitzpatrick, I'm thinking of some other big-name players. You've heard rumors, at least I have, that the Falcons may just dump and just start a complete rebuild at this point. They're going to look for new coaching for long-term. They've got a lot of old but very good players when Julio Jones, Matt Ryan can still throw it. I'm thinking of other teams that might not be doing so good that have some good players, such as the Jets. So this is another thing I wanted to bring up. I've been reading that a lot of NFL or vets or old players are telling Trevor Lawrence to either stay or dodge the Jets.
Good Lord.
That sounds which is terrible, but I'm thinking, what if the Jets traded Darnold and they got some more pieces? Because obviously he's just not in a good situation to be thriving. He needs to go somewhere, and someone will pay for him. And Adam Gase needs fired. That would probably maybe look a little bit better for maybe a guy like Trevor Lawrence, but for at least the future. But I'm just thinking of teams that are either that are still able to compete and make the playoffs, that might want to make a push. Teams like the Patriots are there. The 49ers are there. They need a wide receiver. And then teams that aren't good at all and they need to dump and rebuild, like the Falcons, the Jets. I don't think the really Giants even have anybody to trade that's a good veteran. So it has the potential to be hot, like you guys said, but it's just, will it? So I don't know. Brad?
Yeah, the interesting thing for me is there's a few teams that you can tell are clearly in disarray that they'd be smart to do a rebuild, but their leadership isn't very smart. So if their leadership's not smart, I don't know what to expect. We've seen people talk about rumors about the Sam Darnolds of the world getting traded or some of these, but if I'm like you guys have talked about, the Falcons, I think would be great to do a full rebuild. Obviously, They couldn't keep fixing the defense no matter how much money they pumped into it at free agency, bringing over guys and doing some of the things they did to try to fix the defense. It wasn't working. I'd be more interested to find out kind of what defensive-minded head coaches have done to ruin their teams, because it seems like every team that's gone recently to go get a defensive-minded coach just doesn't seem to have worked out for them. I mean, like Dan Quinn and Matt Patricia are two that come to mind immediately that they just never really could get over the hump and do anything special. Now, obviously, Dan Quinn got to a Super Bowl. Matt Patricia hasn't even gotten out of the toilet bowl yet. But either way, they just haven't been able to have sustained success. It'd be interesting to find out what, because we always hear the mantra defense wins championships, but it just seems like defense gets you fired. And I'm really interested to see kind of what the trade deadline looks like, because I could easily see, you can make a case for probably 5 to 7 teams selling off significant pieces that, if it happens, could really mess up our redraft leagues, because so the Vikings, let's say they decide to move on from Kirk Cousins or Harrison Smith or some of these guys, that really could mess up your redraft team, because what if you have been riding the Vikings defense, which I don't know why you would, but let's say you get rid of the best piece on their defense, it's like, okay, that now messes with you. Or you get rid of Cousins, and Cousins that messes with you because he's has fantasy success even if he's not the best regular quarterback. So I struggle with that. It's like, great, I love trades. I love off-season trades when it's not going to mess with my redraft lineups in the season, because that's a scary thing.
I think you see lesser pieces move at the deadline. I don't think just because of the money tied to the more impactful assets, I'll call them. Like Kirk Cousins is not going anywhere because he's got 21 and change guaranteed to him for another season. Matt Ryan's probably not going anywhere because he's got a boatload tied to him still. But, Sam Darnold, I could totally see him going somewhere.
Mhm.
That makes total sense. The one thing that the Jets have done, Brad, and you mentioned this before, is accumulate draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can fire Gase and get someone in there that might have a clue of what end of the football you is top and bottom, then maybe, I don't know, it didn't work out the way I planned, Bryce. Maybe then you can rebuild that football team. But there's no point in giving all those picks to Adam Gase, who, they asked him if he was giving up play calling duties, and he said that was step 10, and he's only at step 2. I can't wait to see what the other 8 steps are if he lasts that long. So,
we lose the division.
Witchcraft, probably semen sacrifice. Who knows?
He's probably got a lunch. He's probably got a lunch step.
He's going over to Andy Reid's house to learn how to make a burger.
Gosh, the trade deadline is fascinating, but I just don't know with all of the moving pieces what happens really.
Absolutely. We do have more questions, or a question and then one that I have that I think is interesting to talk about. Minnie Jordan asks, so what running backs would you target for DJ Shark? So if you're looking to trade, and OBJ, Deontay Johnson, or DJ Moore in a full PPR. So his running backs currently are Dalvin Cook, who's obviously injured or coming off injury. I don't know how long that's going to last. Singletary, Justin Jackson, Madison, Dearness Johnson, Swift. His wide receivers are Hopkins, Diggs, OBJ, Johnson, DJ Shark, DJ Moore. So basically, which wide receiver would you trade and what running back would you target is what I'm seeing the question really being looking like. So Bryce, Hopkins, Diggs, OBJ, Johnson, Shark, Moore. Who are you trading and who are you going to target if you're looking for some running back help?
So if I'm looking for some running back help with those kind of tier guys, I'm going to look at maybe guys like Todd Gurley, who are having pretty good years, and I think that you could possibly do it straight up for one of those guys. I would have to like look at a sheet of where running backs are averaging and what those wide receivers are averaging, and try and go from there. You could attempt to go get a guy like Kenyon Drake, but after this big week, the owner might have been like, finally, now this is the time for him to roll, so it's probably going to be a little bit tougher. But some of those guys I'd wait, because DJ Shark, he might have another good breakout game where you could probably sell him high. So I'd look at the guys kind of in that Todd Gurley range, maybe running backs that are averaging like 16 to 20-ish points a week, and see what you can do from there. Because wide receivers are great, so you can afford to pay a little bit for a running back, but because your running backs are terrible. So other than Dalvin Cook. Totally.
There's a lot of players here. I think the wide receiver that I would look to sell is DJ Shark, because people are still delusional and think he holds value. So that'd be the first guy that I try to get rid of. I would look to add a guy like Myles Gaskin, maybe David Montgomery, something along those lines.
Okay.
For a wide receiver such as Shark. I just think Deontay Johnson has the ability to have a good second half. DJ Moore to get it going again, and I'm forever going to remain on sort of a truther when it comes to OBJ. I joke about Shark, but I really do firmly feel that he's overvalued, and that's the guy I would capitalize on. And I would go for sort of that. You might even be able to get Nick Chubb, because the owner might be desperate for help there. So take a look at that sort of middling RB2-ish category and take your shot there. To Bryce's point, you can't afford to move one of the other wide receivers, though. You're deep there and thin at where you got to do. Brad?
I had DJ Shark in a dynasty, so I was looking to see what I traded him for here. I traded him on the 18th, so 3 days ago.
You sold him?
Yeah, I sold him. So this team, like I was telling you pre-show, I've decided like all but 2 of my rosters are not competing, so I've really started trying to sell a bunch of pieces. So this is a bigger trade. There's a lot of pieces involved. So I traded Tannehill, DJ Dallas, Miles Boykin, DJ Shark, for Allen Robinson, some draft picks, Matthew Stafford, Kerryon Johnson. So basically some pieces I immediately flipped. Allen Robinson I immediately flipped for first to second, AGG, some different pieces there. So I immediately started flipping them. But so Shark basically wound up, I used Shark to get me to another piece that was getting me to what I wanted, which was draft picks.
Shark bait?
Yeah,
Is
I
that what you
did. There was some shark bait involved.
Nice.
So yeah. So I was just thinking about that.
Hey, I can't let that one go.
For me, I like Devin Singletary. I think he is a serviceable kind of flex play because Zach Moss really hasn't done anything. DeAndre Swift, I think we're turning a corner with him, so I think you can use him. So I'm not going to overpay too much unless the guy is going to really give me what I'm looking for. Like, I'd be willing to package Shark and Johnson to get a guy that I want. But I'm not moving Diggs. I'm not moving Hopkins. I'm not moving DJ Moore. And I'm probably not moving OBJ because OBJ has some boom weeks, and I want to take advantage of those, especially with the bye weeks and everything. So I would probably be okay packaging DJ Shark and Deontay Johnson. With the emergence of Claypool and with Johnson's injuries and all that stuff. Like, Shark is a name, Johnson's a name. I'm packaging them and getting somebody. And I would target, kind of the back-end RB1 group. So maybe you can get, like you guys said, Nick Chubb, who will be coming back from injury probably in 2 or 3 weeks and something like that. If you can't get that, maybe you can go get the other guy who's there, Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt this year will be perfectly fine as a startable weekly running back for you, who's going to get you probably double digits and up per week. And he's a solid play. So those are kind of where I would want to target. I would package the two kind of lesser guys and go get me something like that. Now, and I would even consider maybe even if you can't get those types of guys, maybe you just take Deontay Johnson and you go to the Phillip Lindsay owner and be like, listen, how about straight up for Phillip Lindsay? I like Phillip Lindsay a lot. I think Melvin Gordon's trash. And Phillip Lindsay, even this week, he came back from injury and immediately gave you double-digit fantasy points. Wasn't the sexiest week, but that he still is as good as ever. So
that's not bad.
Couple ways you can go, So you have to, and this ultimately comes down to knowing your league mates, like knowing what guys are willing to do. So
totally,
you got a couple different options there, Mini Jordan. So hopefully you slam dunk it. Okay, so MathQuest says, would you start Ryan or Herbert this week? So Matt Ryan against the Lions or Herbert against, I have no
Jags.
Oh, that's a juicy matchup.
Yeah.
If it's the Lions from last week that's willing to blitz and play zone and not so much man coverage, I'm starting Justin Herbert. If it's the Lions that sit in man-to-man every snap, I'm starting Matt Ryan because he'll torch him. That's a cop-out of an answer, but that's my answer. What do you think, Rob?
I think I'll go with Matt Ryan, just simply based on they're both great matchups, but I don't know if Keenan Allen's all the way back. Herbert's rock solid. And I think this, to steal a line from Bryce, it's a good problem to have. I do think that I've ranked Ryan higher this week, so I'll, believe it or not, trust my own rankings, and I'll go with Matt Ryan. Bryce?
Yeah, I love Matt Ryan as a fantasy QB. He had a couple games this year. We had a rough stretch, but as soon as Julio came back, he went right back to prime. Matt Ryan has tons of weapons to throw it to. The running game is decent, and their defense is terrible, so they're always going to be throwing the ball. So I'll go Matt Ryan for sure.
That's it. There you go. All right, so Jason over on YouTube asks, for my flex spot, Deebo Samuel, Laviska Shenault, or Travis Fulgham? All right, now I got to check matchups because that actually is a really tough one to call. So
he said Fulgham, who else?
Deebo, Laviska, or Fulgham. So Fulgham plays tomorrow night against the Giants. Deebo,
I'm going Fulgham.
Look at you. He's bringing the
Easy.
fire.
I like the way he's been playing the past 3 weeks. The way I look at players is I don't take a 1 week big hit as okay, this guy's good now. Fulgham has scored in the last 3 games, I believe. 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games.
Yep.
Seems to be their best target at this point. I'll take him against the weak Giants team.
Yeah, the 49ers are facing the Patriots. So, yeah, I'd go Fulgham as well. The one thing I do know about Bill Belichick is he takes away your best option. So, Laviska going against the Chargers isn't as exciting. So, yeah, give me Fulgham in that soft matchup against a very weak Giants secondary. What about you, Mr. Sullivan?
I have them ranked Fulgham, Mubo, and then off the screen Laviska. So I was very pessimistic about Travis Fulgham. I am no longer. I think he is all they have left, especially with Zach Ertz now gone and Dallas Goedert not coming back. Jeffrey's not coming back this week. Djax is going to play for whatever that's worth. I think it's easily Fulgham this week. And rest of the season it might be too. Debo looked better, but Patriots just crushed wide receivers, so I want nothing to do with that. And I love Laviska Shenault, but not this week.
There you go. That's it. So good luck, Jason. Hopefully Fulgham gets you a 30-burger like he's been doing here recently, where he's just putting up crazy amounts of points.
That Jason's a hell of a guy, by the way.
He is a sharp-dressed man and a wonderful, wonderful individual, a Rhodes Scholar, if you will. So
one of my favorites.
One of the best in the business. So that's it, folks. That is it. We got through it. So hopefully, good luck this week. Hopefully, you guys win all your matchups and you do well. If you have questions, this isn't the end. Find us over on the Discord chat. I've been seeing people jumping on and joining the Discord server and talking fantasy sports and all things a lot here recently. Find us in Facebook. We got a Facebook community. On Twitter, we've got some Twitter handles below our wonderful pictures here. We're here to help. Reach out to us, ask your questions, and we're here to help you this year and hopefully even further. So don't forget our 2021 rookie content is beginning to drop. Obviously, we had a couple we got some way too early mock drafts, the standard and superflex. We've got obviously the continued thrown out of content. Mr. Sullivan, thank you. Mr. Frazier, thank you guys. Appreciate your time.